5. The Great Central Desert. While the separation of Africa created a tropical rainforest that covers almost all of eastern Africa, the western half of the continent collided with Europe, not only turning the Mediterranean Sea into a barren desert, but also uniting the Arabian and Sahara deserts into one large dry and hot extension of land, creating the largest desert that has ever existed, from the north of Italy to central Chad, and from Spain to Pakistan. The largest ecoregion of the planet looks like an inhospitable and hostile environment from a human perspective, but several creatures that have been evolving in this place for the last 30 million years feel just at home in this sandy hell. We are walking over what used to be Morocco and Spain, and between the mountains and the salt plains we can spot a raccoon. A fully grown male African raccoon is the largest bird alive, and with a height that can go from 8 to 10 feet, it rivals the now extinct ostriches of the Anthropocene. The African raccoon can be found all the way from Italy and Spain to South Africa. They prefer tropical grasslands, but some populations can be found living in deserts and shrublands. They can be differentiated from their European cousins by many traits. Aside from their height, they also have a much lighter coat of feathers that tends to be of a golden color. Their legs are completely naked, and they exhibit a large flap of skin in their neck that serves a function of thermoregulation and display. Only the males have this bright red coloration, and the long feathers on top of each eye. They feed basically on anything they can find, from small lizards and insects to grass and seeds, and have also been observed to steal carrion from small predators. These birds can live up to 30 years, and this male is probably on his late 20s. The African raccoons usually live in small groups formed by a male and 2 to 5 females, but this male is alone. It's likely that due to his age he wasn't able to keep competing with younger and healthier males, and eventually his harem left him behind. We continue walking through the desert, and eventually we stumble upon a herd of ranbroos. These creatures are rodents, descendants of the Anthropocene girds, that can grow to the size of a deer and that thrive in most of northern Africa and the Middle East. It's around midday, and most of the herd is either taking a nap or just laying around in order to avoid overheating during the hottest hours of the day. These creatures live mostly on mountainous areas, always living in large social groups. They form strong bonds and spend a good portion of the day grooming each other and endure the cold of the desert night by cuddling and snuggling each other. The ranbears usually form monogamous pairs, and both the male and female participate in raising their young. They mate at the beginning of autumn and give birth to 4 to 6 pups during midwinter, when, thanks to the sporadic rains and the consequential increase of vegetation, is easier for the females to keep themselves fed and produce more milk. They can go for very long periods of time without drinking water, getting most of the moisture from the things they eat. They feed mostly on grass and cactuses. Their favorite food is the African nopal, descendant of the Mexican nopal that was introduced to Africa by humans during the Anthropocene. They also enjoy eating the fruit of the western tamarind, one of the 3 modern descendants of the ancient Anthropocene tamarind tree. They move hopping in a similar way to kangaroos, and can reach a speed of around 50 kilometers per hour, and jump more than 2 meters in one leap. This allows them to escape most of the predator that's try to hunt them. However, there is one creature that sometimes managed to take them down. These are the aardhans. They are around the size of a domestic dog and are the most fearsome predators we can find in the Great Central Desert, even though they have a relatively weak bite and are not as heavily built as other living carnivores, but they compensate all of this with numbers. They form packs that are formed by 5 to 20 individuals, and use coordinated hunting strategies to take down creatures like the raccoon, the ranbears, and several other large herbivores. They look and behave like canines, but are actually members of Feliformia, part of a lineage that directly descends from the Anthropocene meerkats, which after the mass extinction diversified to a wide variety of niches, some becoming scavengers, other generalist omnivores, and some, like the aardhans, megafaunal predators. One trait the aardhans still share with their ancient relatives is a high level of immunity towards the venom of many different species of snake, lizards, and scorpions. The aardhan can eat creatures that could kill animals twice their size in a single bite, and even more. Some juvenile individuals have been observed to kill snakes for fun and use them as toys. They have a very complex communication system, based both on a wide variety of different calls and signals they make with their tails. they tend to rely more on tail movements when hunting or trying to impress possible mates and vocalizations when alerting from incoming attackers or dangers in general. When we moved east, we arrived to a large natural pool. When the Mediterranean dried up, most of the Mediterranean basin became a large salt plain, but a few pools of brackish water still remain. These pools have around 10 times more salt than the sea, and most organisms can't survive here, with a few exceptions being small algae and microscopic crustaceans, and feeding on them we can also find the crying lizard, also known as weeping dragon. These creatures are members of the Agamidi family, distant relatives of the bearded dragon and the flamboyant rainbow agama. As they live in such high salt concentrations, they have adapted to lose salt by constantly crying and sneezing while on land, hence their name, crying lizards. They can be found around Spain, Italy and Greece, living in large colonies. The largest ever registered was formed by more than 90 individuals living around Greece. They usually only feed on algae and crustaceans, but have also been observed to eat small insects and even small lizards. The females usually grow up to 20 centimeters in length, while the males are usually bigger, for 25 to 30 centimeters in length, and the bigger the male is, the more attractive it is for the females. During mating season, it is common to see many smaller males trying to arch their backs and adopt strange postures in order to look bigger. When we go back to the camp, we encounter a bunch of holes in the sand. Upon closer inspection, these are the entrances of a complex tunnel system inhabited by a colony of gerblings, another descendant of the Jerds. The gerblings are much smaller than the ranbrus. Actually, they are on average smaller than their Anthropocene relatives, weight around 40 to 50 grams, and while their ancestors populated a big portion of Asia, the gerblings can only be found in the Western African continent. These creatures are also the second species of mammal to have ever evolved eusocial behavior. They live in large colonies formed by 80 to 120 individuals, leadered by a queen that can weigh 10 times more than the workers, and that will spend most of her life inside her royal chamber in the depths of the burrow, giving birth every 3 weeks to a litter of up to 16 blind hairless little pups. The moment she finishes giving birth, she will mate and get pregnant again. Her consort will help her take care of the pups, as well as a few of her younger daughters. When the pups reach the month of age, they will start working. Both males and females will spend the night out foraging for food, and during the day the females will use their keratin helmet and horns to dig, while the males will remain in the upper layers, keeping an eye on predators like snakes or lizards that might try to infiltrate in the tunnels. If a male detects a predator, he will stomp with his hind limbs to alert the rest of the colony, and while the females will gather around the queen to protect her, the males will all attack at once. Even if a snake can kill 5 or 6, the rest will tear it apart with their tiny vicious bites. When the queen gets old, she will stop producing pheromones and some of the workers will become fertile. The bigger one will kill or chase away the others and become the new queen. More than 20 generations of gerblings can live in the same tunnel system. The only force that would make them need to move out is the case of a flooding caused by an extremely wet rainy season, but here in the Great Central Desert that's a very rare occurrence. On the other hand, there is a creature that literally lives waiting for an occasion like that. This is the sand toad. This is the only amphibian that can call this desert home. And in a place where a couple years without a drop of rain is the norm is easy to get. Why not many frogs or toads are interested in settling in it, but the sand toad has come with a couple adaptations that allow him to survive here. Every time it rains, they emerge from the sand in large quantities and start frantically searching for food. They'll eat and will mate as much as they can and as fast as they can for days on. After this frenzy, the females will dig a small burrow, around 20 centimeters deep, and lay their eggs inside. For the next 3 weeks, she will go back to the burrow every few hours to keep the eggs clean and moisturized, peeing on them and making sure there is no mold or predatory insects around. After this time, the younglings will hatch fully formed, as the little ponds that are formed during the rainy season usually last for very little time. The tadpoles wouldn't have high chances of survival, so just as many different lineages of frog, the sand toad has evolved to skip that phase, what is known as direct development. As long as the weather still's mildly wet, the sand toad will be active and will try to gain as much weight as possible. Once the ponds dry out, the toad will bury themselves in the mud and use a special type of mucus to form a cocoon, in which they will remain in a state of suspended animation for up to 8 years, patiently waiting for the next rain. We are about to leave when we hear a deafening roar that resonates through the desert. We are dangerously close to a couple of wolf-sized mustelid that are devouring a ram bear's carcass. The furo is one of the most common carnivores that can be found in Western Africa. They are very aggressive and territorial, and have one of the most powerful bites of any mammal, only comparable to the now extinct Tasmanian devil. They are able to hunt small to mid-sized prey, but they rarely ever do it. Almost all of their diet comes from carrion, and their devastating bite force has actually evolved in order to allow them to crush down bones and access to the nutrition's bone marrow inside. The populations that live in the desert can get more than 75% of their diet from bones because as this place is also the territory of the Atlas bats, it's almost impossible to get to a corpse before them, and usually by the time they arrive the only thing left are bones. Is not common, but occasionally they also steal food from other predators, either by intimidating them or sneaking up on them. The furo is one of the few monogamous mustelid currently alive, and the male takes an active role in the care of their young. The younglings will spend up to 1 year under the care of their parents, after which they will have to go and live on their own, so their parents can focus all their attention into raising another litter of tiny vicious bone-crushing pups.